Hello. I'm not going to lie, this is not going to be a short video, but it is a video that shows you how to access an assignment in one of my courses from the very start to the very end. So feel free to forward to the part that you need help with. For instance, if you're just here to know how to submit the final assignment after you've gone through all the steps of accepting it, feel free to forward to the end and I'll show you how to submit your assignment at the very end. But let's get started from the very beginning, when you first enter my course, how you'll be able to accept an assignment, get it cloned onto your computer, use GitHub and Jupyter Lab to make changes to your assignment, and then push it back up to the cloud, and then finally how to submit that assignment once you complete it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is create a GitHub account. And so once you've got a GitHub account created, you'll see a screen that looks like this. Maybe you won't see any repositories on the left-hand side as I do, but perhaps you might have an account picture or a name. I've created a new account called Demo for As for the purposes of this video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite this Demo for As account into this organization. So on my other screen, I'm just going to type this. You don't need to see what that looks like. So I'm now going to add them to the students team. And so when I send an invitation, okay, so once I've sent an invitation to you, you'll get an invitation that looks something like this. So the user account, so that's my account at Farazem, has invited you to join a new organization. So I have I have an organization for each of my classes, and it's important to join this organization so that I can address all of you students at the same time. So there is a link here. You just need to copy this link or click on it, and then in your browser, paste it into the window, and you'll be getting this message that's something like this. You've been invited to the Data 301 organization. Of course, you might get a different message depending on which course you're in. So you can either join it or decline. So I'm going to go ahead and join this organization, and then when I go into go back to the original GitHub page, on the very left, I will now be able to switch my dashboard context to be able to see what's going on in the Data 301 organization. All right, so that's it. We're now in the Data 301 organization, and we can now create our new repositories if we like. We can do whatever we want that's related to the course within this organization, and it won't be seen outside of this organization. Okay, so now that you've joined the team, the next step is to actually accept an assignment or a lab that I have assigned to you. So the best way to do that is to go to Canvas, and you'll see a page like this on Canvas. And what you can do now is go to the course content tab here, and you'll see my website, right? So this is a website that's embedded into this Canvas shell, and you'll see usually something on the bottom here that says labs or assignments. And so when you click here, there'll be a link for you to accept the lab. All right, so once you click accept the lab, you'll now accept that lab into your GitHub Classroom account, and then you'll be able to do the lab. So often when you click on accept lab, this might not work inside the Canvas window, so you might have to right click and click open a new window, or copy the link and then open it in a new tab. But so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to copy the link address, and then in our new tab, we're going to paste the link that we just copied. And lo and behold, we'll get taken to a page where we can join the classroom. And so once I've linked my github.com account to my classroom, I can now accept this assignment. So once I accept this assignment, a repository will be created for me with some starter code. And once that's done, it says you're ready to go, you've accepted the assignment, test assignment, and here is the link to your repository. It also helpfully tells you that there is a due date to this assignment. So once I click this, I'll get taken to my repository now. Okay, so here, this is where you now have a copy of the assignment that I have assigned to you. There's usually going to be 2 or 3 files in it. The first is a Readme file that just has some instructions on what you need to do. So for instance, this assignment is not for marks, it's just for you to play around with, and there's 3 questions that I want you to do at the end of the lab. So one is, how long did you spend on it? It's useful for me to know how long my students are spending on the labs to make sure that I make the assignment lengths appropriate. So go ahead and answer this question in the README file, and the way to do that is to click this button here, the pencil button, and that lets you edit it. But if you do that, remember you'll need to pull the assignment onto your local computer. So when you answer this question, you just want to replace everything that's in this curly brackets with a number. And the reason that I'm doing this is that I have a script that sort of takes in all this information and compiles it for me at the very end. So it's useful if you don't put anything except numbers in these curly braces. The second thing is, what did you learn in this assignment? And the third thing is, any suggestions for improving this assignment? So you could use the web editor on GitHub to edit the README, but it's actually very difficult to code on GitHub. So what you want to do next is to click this code button here, and then you want to clone this onto your computer. So click the address here, copy the address, and then open a terminal window on your computer. So for me, the terminal window goes directly to my home directory first, but I have created a bunch of subdirectories so that I know and I can keep myself organized. So I've got one called school, and then a subdirectory in that called my courses, and then data 301, that's the current course I'm in. So if I'm in my terminal window, I type pwd, this is my current home directory, so I can use a cd command to switch into school, and then I want to switch into my courses, and then I want to switch into data 301. So now that I'm in data 301, I have my GitHub link copied. I do git or git clone, and I'm going to clone everything that's on the cloud, in the GitHub cloud there. So now I've copied the address for that, and when I hit enter, you'll notice a new folder will get created. So this is called the test assignment, and this is with my username there. So now when I check my directory, I'm again in school, my courses, data 301. So I want to go into the test assignment. So I'm now using tab to complete rather than writing the whole thing out. All right, so now I'm in my test assignment. And if I do an ls, which lists all the contents of my directory, I see two files: a test IPYNB file, as well as a notebook, as well as the README. Okay. So now we can start working on my assignment. We'll talk about this more later, but you can just do a Jupyter space lab, and then it will create a new Jupyter server on your machine, and it'll open it up in a new tab. It'll look something like this. The first thing that gets edited is this README file, so now you can start editing this thing. So let's say this assignment took me 2.5 hours. I'm just going to take 2.5 and make sure I leave the brackets in there, because that's what I'm going to use to parse out that information. And you can say 2.5 hours, but this is an approximate, because I had to figure some other stuff out and I was watching Netflix, something like that. What did you learn in the assignment? You can possibly write some things. So thing 1, thing 2, thing 3. Any suggestions for improving this assignment? Yes, better directions on how to get started. Okay, so that's some suggestions I have. And then when I want to save it, I just do file, save all, or save markdown file, and then I've saved it. The bulk of the assignment, though, will usually come in an IPYNB file or a notebook file. So I double click that, and this will open up a couple of tasks that I want you to do in the notebook. So the first is just a regular text, so you just write in regular markdown. So the task is, tell me the most boring fact about you. I was very sad that the Raptors lost to the Celtics in Game 7 last week. So that's the most boring fact about me. One thing is, you'll need to switch the cell type from code to markdown. That just tells this Jupyter Notebook renderer that this is just going to be a regular cell rather than a code cell. And the second task is to write a loop to print the numbers 1 to 10 in order. All right, so now this is where we're going to do a little bit of coding. It's just going to be a couple lines. So I'm going to start typing away what I want to code here. So I will just say something like for I in range 10 print I. So I'm just going to print all the things. Oh, I noticed that it only goes up to 9, and I want to print from 1 to 10. So now I'm going to start the numbering from 1, and I'm actually going to go to 11 so that it stops at 10. And that's just because of the way Python, the range function works. The end limit on the right-hand side doesn't actually get included. It's an open bracket rather than a square bracket. All right, so now I've got the numbers printed from 1 to 10. I'm going to save this notebook, and I can close it now. Everything's saved. I can go back to my terminal window here, and I can press Control-C to get back my terminal. Okay, or I can open up a new terminal and just do the same thing again. But I want to show you something. If I cancel out of this terminal, it'll ask me if I want to shut down a notebook server. I say yes, and the notebook server is closed. Okay, so now when I try to access the notebook server here, it'll say this page cannot be reached because the server isn't running. To restart my server, I just go ahead and type in Jupyter Lab. And I go reload on my browser window, and there we go. We have our Jupyter Notebook server back, and all my files are there as well, and I can read and edit them. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this again, close my server, shut it down, and then the next thing I'm going to do is just type clear to clear the console so that it's easier for you to see. And now I have some changes on my computer that I want to push to the cloud. So a couple of commands that might be useful here. You can do a git status to see what changed on your computer so far. So compared to what's the gold standard or the original version on GitHub Cloud, the things that have changed are the IPYNB file. Yes, we added some text there. Also the Readme file. So we're going to add these things to our repository. We're going to do git add dot. You can also do git add -a, which means all the files in this particular folder. I'm going to add this. Then I'm going to do a git commit -m. These are all the new files I've changed. So I'm going to give a quick message updating what's going on. And then I'm going to git push. All right, so you can see now if I reload here, nothing's going to change. I replaced this with numbers, and then when I click notebook test, it doesn't actually have any of my contents yet. But as soon as I hit git push, it's going to send all of my changes locally up to the cloud. And then when I go here and I hit reload, then that is when I'll see all of the code that I've written and all the text that I added. So now everything's in sync, and I'm good to go. So let me show you what happens if I change something on the cloud version of this, and I want to then edit it locally. Let's say I want to edit the README here, and I'm going to say, actually, I also learned one more thing. I learned thing 4. Okay, so same idea. Once you save it, you'll be taken to this this box here that asks you what changes you made. So added a new thing that I learned. And I'm going to commit those changes. Okay, so because this is on the web interface, there's no need to push it automatically. This is the default version. This is the gold standard version. This is the thing that will always be the most accurate. All right, so now I've now added thing 4. But if I launch my Jupyter Lab server here, you'll notice that if I go into my README, it won't actually have the thing 4, right? Because I haven't pulled those things down from the cloud. So what I'm going to do now is open up a new terminal window, so you can see you can have multiple tabs. I suggest you have one tab running with just the server all the time, and then you can use another tab for any of the git commands that you do. So to pull the changes from the cloud, all you have to do is go into the directory and type git pull, and it's going to pull all the new changes. So it says 1 file changed, and that's README, 2 insertions, and 1 deletion. So now when I go to this, I reload, Apple R or Control R, thing 4 is now present. Okay, perfect. So now you can do a bunch of changes. Let's say I want to do thing 5. I save it. I do git add dot, git commit -m, added a new change, git push. Now it's all up to the cloud. I go here, I reload, I make sure that the thing 5 is there. So now things are in sync. If you want to check what your what things you've uploaded so far, all on this assignment, you can click on this. You can click on this title here. There's multiple ways of doing it. Click on this title, and the easiest way is to click this button here for commits, and this tells you all the things that have changed on this particular repository. Okay, perfect. So now I have my changes. I'm ready to submit it. What do I do next? Well, all you need to do is to go to the repository here, and I'm going to ask you to copy this URL. So this is just the address to this particular page that only the instructors and you have access to. So I'm going to ask you to copy this, go back to Canvas, and then in the assignments page, there will be a lab, there will be an assignment that you can use to submit. So click the assignment, and then it'll say submit this assignment. It's going to ask you for the URL. So now I want you to copy this URL that you copied from your repository in here. Add a comment. Thank you for using GitHub in this class. All right, so I'm gonna paste this URL in. This comment is optional, you don't need to put anything in. And then you just submit, and that's it. So you don't need to resubmit your assignment if you make any changes on your GitHub repository. It's just gonna update, remember, because I'm asking you to link to the entire repository, and whenever we access it, when we click on the notebook or the Readme, we'll see the latest version. At some point, right at the deadline, you will no longer have access to write to this repository, and that will be the final version that we end up marking. So so be careful when you make changes after you submit. Once you submit, we'll usually we won't start marking right away. Maybe it'll be a couple of hours or a few hours delay. But once we start marking it, that will be the version that we mark, even if you make changes after the fact. But like I said, at some point, 48 hours after the deadline, you will no longer have privileges to submit this or make any changes to this repository. Okay, so that's it. Once you've submitted it, it'll say something like you submitted it, this is the date you did it, here are the details, and then it'll just tell you exactly what you see. So the reason it says 404 is because currently this particular student doesn't have access to this repository. You'll need to log in and authenticate. But we have access to that repository. Don't worry if it shows something like this, but this is the most important thing, the URL that you need to submit. All right, so once that's done, you go back to the course content page, and by then there will be possibly a new assignment for you to accept. You click accept, go forward, do the same steps again, and submit it at the end. Okay, I hope that helps. Take care, everyone. See you all later.